All right, y'all, we have to talk about right-wing cancel culture in the wake of Charlie Kirk being shot, because this is just seriously unhinged. I mean, I've never seen anything this extreme in terms of canceling, censoring, trying to ruin somebody's life. Let me walk you through it here. So you have these people who put together this database of what they call Charlie's murderers. Okay, now right off the bat, we're in legal trouble here because these are not Charlie's murderers. These are people who may have, it ranges from people like mocking Charlie Kirk after he died to people saying, it's horrible he got shot and I condemn it, but I disagree with him and here's why, to people just like literally directly quoting him, using his own words and saying, here's what he said. And so they're just calling them Charlie's murderers and putting them on this massive doxing website. Now, they would claim, oh, it's not doxing because all the information's already publicly available. And I don't know, on a technicality, they may be correct or maybe not. But when you take all that information and put it together and put it on a list where you have, you know, whatever, names, phone numbers, addresses, and stuff like that, and clearly the intent here is ruin these people's lives, I think it does change the nature of what they're doing in the sense that clearly there's ethical issues here and moral issues here, but it goes deeper than that. In fact, there are definitely legal issues. So as you can see here, database to expose over 30,000 people celebrating Charlie Kirk's death with employer details is set for public release soon. Oh, so that's true too. They have employer details, which means they're saying like, hey, call the employer and tell them to fucking fire this person for saying stuff we don't like. Free speech, anyone? No, not to these people. They don't give a fuck about that. So here's what the website said. And I should point out, the number's way higher than 30,000 now. I believe the number was over like 50,000, maybe even way more than that. So it says, expose Charlie's murderers. Charlie Kirk was murdered as an employee or a student of yours supporting political violence online. Look them up on this website. Send information on anyone celebrating Charlie's death. And then they have a Twitter account for Charlie Kirk 1. This website will soon be converted into a searchable database of over 30,000 submissions, filterable by general location and job industry. This is a permanent and continuously updating archive of radical activists calling for violence. This is the largest firing operation in history. They are bragging about a firing operation. So if you say anything other than, you know, fawning love and adoration and praise for Charlie Kirk after he's been killed, if you disagree with him even a little bit, they want to get you fired. They want to force you to live in poverty. They want to ruin your life. That's what they want to do. All right, well, guess what? Update just came in. Okay, first let me show you this. Evan says, this website is almost certainly criminal defamation, and any of the people on it have an easy lawsuit. Expose Charlie's murder. Charlie Kirk was murdered as an employee, so it says all the things that we already laid out for you. Boom, we just got this update. They changed the domain and took everyone off the site. So it used to be like charliesmurderers.com. Then they had to change it to charliekirkdata.org, Charlie Kirk Data Foundation. Now it says, this is not a doxing website. We lawfully collected publicly available data to analyze the prominence of support for political violence in the interests of public education. We do not publish data which identifies individuals. Our thoughts and prayers are with Charlie Kirk's families. So what this means is defamation lawyers were ready to have a fucking field day, bro. A field day. You put like over 50,000 people and all of their personal information on a website and encourage people to harass them and threaten them and try to get them fired. Well, guess what? Number one, these aren't public profile people. So based on that alone, the bar is lower for like defamation or libel or slander. That's point number one. Point number two, you're calling them Charlie's murderers. That is clear defamation because they're not murderers. They may be somebody who said something impolite after the death of somebody that they didn't like, but that's perfectly legal. Of course that's legal. So holy cow. But guys, when I tell you how insane this has been, here, I'll show you. I'll give you a bunch of examples. Libs of TikTok says, a teacher at Ellsworth Community School District in Wisconsin, quote, he spewed hate. You can't be upset that he died. This teacher, Krista Lisecki, she said the following about Charlie after he died. He said deaths are worth it for the Second Amendment. He did say that. He spewed hate. Disagree with his comment and essentially everything he stood for. But if you like what he stood for, then you can't be upset that he died. He fulfilled his destiny. In other words, when he says, hey, deaths are worth it to preserve the Second Amendment, and then he dies because of guns, that's the point she's making, right? Very straightforward point. So Libs of TikTok calls her out. Guess what? Derek Van Orden comes out and says, I represent Ellsworth in Congress. It is a beautiful town full of wonderful people, except this one. I will be working to remove all federal funding, including grants and community-directed projects for the entire city of Ellsworth, unless this is rectified immediately. So let me screw over an entire town of people because I don't like what one person in the town said. That's insane, bro. That's insane. Let me take all the grants, all the federal funding away because one person said one thing I don't agree with, which, by the way, is not at all a criminal thing. By the way, you scroll down here a little bit, and what do you find? Derek Van Orden, this same guy who's outraged that somebody dared disagree with Charlie Kirk after he died. He responded to a tweet that said 17 million people just lost healthcare, 18 million kids just lost school meals, 3 million Americans just lost food assistance. He responded to that with, yes! Celebrating that 17 million people got kicked off healthcare. Here's a different tweet of his. The suppression of protected religious free speech by leftists must be stopped. So leftists being anti-free speech is disgusting and grotesque. But right-wingers being anti-free speech is based and cool and Chad. Oh my God, I hate these people so much. Bro, we are just getting started. An Arizona sports outlet, Phoenix Sports, has fired lead Phoenix Suns reporter Gerald Bourget after he questioned why outrage over right-wing activist Charlie Kirk's killing was louder than outrage over school shootings, mass deportations, or the hundreds of videos of horrific murders in Gaza, which Charlie Kirk cheered on. Phoenix, in a statement, said the network takes matters involving violence very seriously and parted ways with Bourget to keep its community a safe place. Oh my God. Gerald Bourget was not endorsing violence, but was urging readers to apply the same moral standard to all killings. He wrote, quote, too many of you are more concerned with being polite and appearing to be good people rather than showing some damn backbone and standing on principle to condemn hate. The network did not explain how his comments made Phoenix less safe. Bourget's case joins a wave of recent firings and suspensions, including an MSNBC analyst, a FEMA employee, and a Carolina Panthers staffer over commentary on Charlie Kirk's death. So, just, somebody saying, all right, you want to be outraged about Charlie Kirk's death? Fine, but what about all those babies that are being blown up in Gaza that you haven't said shit about? What's up with that, bro? And they go, oh, we must fire you. This was endless. It's still going on right now. So this is the expose Charlie's murderers people. Screenshot evidence of all those celebrating Charlie Kirk's murder. Have it ready for submission. Collect everything. So as Nathan J. Robinson points out, notably, many of the entries on the Charlie Kirk's murderers database are people saying things like, I don't think he should have been shot, but he wasn't a good person, and we should give equal attention to other victims. For that, they're trying to get you fired. So here's one of the comments that's on the website that they're trying to dox this person, get them fired, and ruin their life for. I've tried to hold my tongue, but I genuinely do not know how any person could be saying Charlie Kirk was a good man. Of course, it's awful he was shot. So were more children at a school in Colorado the same day. Yet, most of you haven't said a thing about that or any of the 45 school shootings this year. That is a tame, sane, rational, reasonable, correct, accurate comment, and they're trying to ruin that person's life over it. Michael Tracy says, a professor at a public university in Tennessee was just fired for resharing a post that university administrators deemed insensitive and disrespectful. Most right-wingers never cared about cancel culture as such. They just wanted to be the ones doing the canceling. And then you want to know what this person shared? Ready? Here's the only apparent post from this professor who was just fired. This person shared an article that says, Charlie Kirk says gun deaths unfortunately worth it to keep the Second Amendment. So literally just sharing what Charlie Kirk's position was with no added commentary whatsoever. And they go, fire him. Now, by the way, I should also point out, you want to talk about easy slam dunk court cases. If you're a teacher and you get fired for something like this, totally illegal, totally unconstitutional. There's case law on this, and the Supreme Court has deemed that protected First Amendment speech. This is like the government trying to crack down on you for you speaking your mind. They cannot fire you over this. It is very clear. Classic First Amendment case here. So they could easily get their job back. The question is, do they want to go through all the fucking trouble and the fuss and the money that it would cost to get their fucking job back? Right? Just absolutely disgusting. For years and years and years, the right just went off on the left for cancel culture and censoring and silencing people and look at these snowflakes shutting us down. Meanwhile, what's like the worst example they come up with? Oh, a bunch of college kids are trying to make it so Ann Coulter can't give a speech at a university. That was the extent of fucking left-wing cancel culture. The right-wingers are like, how about I get you fired? How about I get you fired? How about I ruin your life? How about I threaten you? How about you get arrested? Hang on for that. It's coming. I got one for you. It's coming in a little bit. Here's a guy named Ian Yeager. He says, liberals can't stand a difference of opinion, so they will cancel you. He said that in 2022. Here he is in 2025. I am calling on Barnes & Noble to remove all Stephen King books from their shelves after his post about Charlie Kirk. What happened? I thought liberals can't stand a difference of opinion. Apparently you can't stand a difference of opinion. Probably the most frustrating thing about conservatives is how many of them are genuinely too stupid to even understand that this is hypocritical because they genuinely cannot comprehend moral principles beyond me good, you bad. Exactly right. Senator Katie Britt went on Fox News and said, if you are out there and you are celebrating the political assassination of a man who is exercising his free speech, you should be held accountable. You should be fired, and that is the beginning and the end of it, full stop. So literally in the same sentence where she says, I support free speech, she says, you should be fired for your speech. As Jim Stewartson says, you cannot reason with this level of non-self-awareness. In other words, she's a fucking idiot. She's a low IQ idiot, and everybody engaged in this fucking crusade, it's the same goddamn thing. Low IQ morons, knuckle-dragging freaks. Pete Hegseth tells Pentagon staff to hunt for negative Charlie Kirk posts by service members. Several people have already been relieved of their jobs because their posts on social media, defense officials told NBC News. They are ideologically purging the entire military. Anybody who does anything but fawning praise over the dead right-wing propagandist is in trouble, is losing their job. Jesus Christ. Jesus Christ. This is hitting every area of society. Ready for this? Meet U.S. Army Lieutenant Colonel Christopher Ladnier, the Provost Marshal at Fort Eustis, Virginia. He has thoughts on the assassination of Charlie Kirk, and they don't seem in the least sympathetic. So this person is sending the information on this Lieutenant Colonel to the Charlie Kirk's murderers people, right? You ready for what he said? Literally everything this guy said is a direct quote of Charlie Kirk with no added commentary. Quote, I think it's worth it. I think it's worth it to have a cost of, unfortunately, some gun deaths every single year so that we can have the Second Amendment to protect our other God-given rights. MLK was awful. He's not a good person. He said one thing, he said one good thing he actually didn't believe. The Civil Rights Act, though, let's be clear, created a beast, and that beast has now turned into an anti-white weapon. I don't like the word empathy. I think empathy is a made-up New Age term that does a lot of damage. Every single thing he said here, directly quoting Charlie Kirk. That's it. No commentary, no, I'm glad he's dead, no, I'm with the shooter, no crazy shit like that. No, just here's what Charlie said. And they're adding him to the Charlie's murderers list. Trying to ruin his life, get him kicked out of the military. It is unbelievable where we're at, bro. It is unbelievable. It's one thing to try to say, we should have bare minimum civility in this country, bare minimum decorum and respect for fellow people, regardless of their ideology, right? It's one thing to say, you know what? If you don't have anything nice to say, hold your fucking breath for a day or two, right? That's one thing. It's a totally other thing to say, you're only allowed to do fawning praise. And if you do anything other than fawning praise, we're going to ruin your life. That's a totally separate thing. And now you're not even allowed to directly quote him. How damning is that, by the way? That if you put his own words and that's it, they go, oh, obviously you're trying to say he was a piece of shit. Like, I didn't say anything. You're interpreting it like that because the words on the page are pretty fucking ugly, aren't they? How damning is that? About their own ideology. That all you have to do is quote them back to them and they're outraged and offended and they're blaming you. I didn't say it. You could have not said that, right? It's unbelievable, bro. It is unbelievable. Here's another right-wing prick, Olivia, who says, hate speech is still free speech. Cry about it. She said that in August 15th, so about a month ago. Now, I feel like a Karen with the amount of calls I've made to employers. Anyways, back at it again. So hate speech is free speech. Go cry about it. But now, if somebody said something mean about Charlie Kirk since he's been killed, you're calling employers to get those people fired for their free speech. I cannot express to you how furious this makes me. How much this makes my blood boil. You cannot take a single word of these right-wingers at face value. They have zero principles. Zero. They don't believe in anything at all. They believe in power. That's all. I'm right, you're wrong, I'm going to crush you. That's all they believe in. They will flip on a dime a principle that they claim to believe in that defined the movement for fucking years. Derek Evans says, how did we get to a place where political violence is not only acceptable, but is being celebrated? I pray for our country. This is something that Derek Evans had posted on social media before. It's Christmas ornaments of Dr. Fauci and Nancy Pelosi and Joe Biden and Barack Obama and Kamala Harris and Hillary Clinton being hanged, and killed. And it is supposed to be Donald Trump, basically pulling the rope that gets them all killed. But, political violence, how is it being celebrated? Florida Democratic lawmaker faces demands to resign after calling Charlie Kirk fitting sacrifice to our Lord Smith & Wesson. So here's the full thing he said. Charlie Kirk is a fitting sacrifice to our Lords, Smith & Wesson, hallowed be their names. And it shows, picture of Charlie Kirk and the event he was at. Clearly what he's saying there is, hey, the right has decided we shouldn't do any gun reform, and so therefore our gods are Smith & Wesson, and okay, well, now here's your sacrifice to Smith & Wesson. In other words, flipping their ideology back on them to say, hey, this is what you guys wanted, and now you got it. And of course, they're calling for him to resign. This one is not even, this was, I believe this article was from before the shooting. UC Berkeley shares 160 names with Trump administration in McCarthy-era move. Prominent professor Judith Butler, among students and faculty, investigated for alleged anti-Semitic incidents. So you can't say anything that disagrees with Charlie Kirk since he's passed away. And you also can't be too pro-Palestine or too anti-Israel, because then your name is going to be shared directly with the Trump regime in this new McCarthy-era crackdown. That's great. Really good stuff. Greg Abbott says, this is what happened to a person who was mocking Charlie Kirk's assassination at Texas Tech. And it says FAFO. That stands for fuck around and find out. And you see this young black woman getting arrested. That's what you see. So according to Greg Abbott, his words, not mine, this is what happened to the person who was mocking Charlie Kirk's assassination at Texas Tech. So she is being arrested for mocking the assassination of Charlie Kirk. This is a classic, literal, textbook example of free speech. We may not like it. You could say it's uncouth. You could say it's incredibly mean. Whatever you want to say, it is completely and utterly legal. You think if I got murked, there wouldn't be conservatives dancing in the fucking streets? I got news for you. There would be. But he's bragging about it. Here's something he posted on Twitter just a few months back. I just signed a law protecting free speech on college campuses. Oh my God. They never meant it. When they say we believe in free speech, they say we believe in free speech to say overtly racist shit and to call for our 17th fucking war of imperial aggression. That's what they mean when they say we believe in free speech. They believe in free speech for right-wingers. And as far right as you want to go on that spectrum, they're the people who get free speech. Nazis get free speech and you can shut up and take it. But if you're slightly to the left of center, oh no. You get no free speech. You get arrested. Arrested for being mean to Charlie Kirk after his assassination. I thought this was America. I thought we had free speech. Well, we did until the right killed it. This is the game I'm not going to play, y'all. I'm not going to play this game. We're not going to play this game where you are now not allowed to speak about his actual views since he's passed away. I agree on the point that, hey, be a decent human being and say that political violence is wrong because political violence is wrong. I totally agree with that. I think any reasonable person would agree with that. I think we have to live in a civilized society, and part of a civilized society is you can't do fucking vigilante murders and political assassinations, right? Duh. That's the most obvious thing in the world, and everybody should say that. Now, at the same time, they're taking that one step further where they go, well, under the guise of niceties and decorum and civility and being a civilized country, we're now going to say you're only allowed to do fawning praise of the guy. But there's a problem with that. Then you're saying this high-profile, controversial political figure, now his ideas are off the table for debate. And we agree with them, and that's the end of the conversation. But we don't. Agree. And that's okay. We can disagree. So here's some of the stuff that he believed. Charlie Kirk directly called for, supported, organized, and or financed political violence, a thread with receipts from Cooper Streaming. Here's Charlie Kirk calling for the killing of Joe Biden. So there's video of him where he says he should get life in prison or the death penalty. Here's Charlie Kirk saying America should have public executions and show them to children. Here's Charlie Kirk saying we need to have a Nuremberg-style trial for every gender-affirming clinic doctor. Here's Charlie Kirk calling for shooting and whipping migrants on the southern border. Here's Charlie Kirk talking about immigration as the enemy occupation of the foreign hordes and directing his supporters to buy weapons, buy ammo. If you go into a public space, bring a gun with you. Here's Charlie Kirk claiming Haiti is legitimately infested with demonic voodoo and Haitian migrants would become your masters if Trump lost the election. Charlie Kirk calling for grown men to physically confront and threaten children with violence. Hey, tough guy, you want to get in a pool? Because you're going to have to come through us. Here's Charlie Kirk calling trans people an abomination and telling men to handle them like they did in the 60s, directly encouraging violence against student athletes. Here's Charlie Kirk calling a murder victim a scumbag. Here's Charlie Kirk claiming the civil rights movement was a huge mistake and it created a beast, and that beast has now turned into an anti-white weapon. Here's Charlie Kirk calling Martin Luther King Jr. awful and a bad person because the 1965 civil rights law prohibited discrimination on the basis of race, color, religion, sex, and national origin, and prohibited segregation. Here's Charlie Kirk fear-mongering with racist statements against black people. Happening all the time in urban America, prowling blacks go around for fun to target white people. That's a fact. Here's Charlie Kirk implying if a black woman frustrates him, she deserves violence. Charlie Kirk, when, quote, I'm dealing with somebody in customer service who's a moronic black woman. It almost creates thought patterns that are not necessarily wholesome. Here's Charlie Kirk knowing that he doesn't want America's religious freedom to apply to Muslims because they are a threat. America has freedom of religion, of course, but we should be frank, large dedicated Islamic areas are a threat to America. Here's Charlie Kirk claiming Muslims are incompatible with civilization in America. Quote, we've been warning about the rise of Islam on the show to a great amount of backlash. We don't care. Islam is not compatible with Western civilization. Here's Charlie Kirk using violent imagery to stoke fears against Islam, claiming that by practicing their religion in a country with freedom of religion, Islam is the sword the left is using to slit the throat of America, and a spiritual battle is coming to the West. Here's Charlie Kirk lying about immigration numbers and openly supporting the false white supremacist great replacement theory to stoke fear in the public towards immigrants. Here's Charlie Kirk saying gun deaths are worth it. Here's Charlie Kirk's list he made of professors he subjected to death threats, rape threats, and racist and anti-Semitic harassment because they taught academic subjects that did not align with his white supremacist agenda. Here's a long but not exhaustive list of white supremacist hate incidents from Charlie Kirk's Turning Point USA. Here's Charlie Kirk organizing 80 or so buses full of violent insurrectionists to attempt to overthrow the elected president and the Constitution of the United States. This thread is, of course, not exhaustive. Feel free to add your own documented incidents with receipts below. So that's the record. That's the record. Truth is always a defense. Truth is always a defense. In fact, truth is offense too. It's both defense and offense. And so we're not going to play this game because they're literally ruining people's lives for disagreeing with a political pundit who was killed. Killing is bad and wrong, but that doesn't mean we have to then agree with everything in that ideology. That's crazy. But that's what they're demanding. And that is completely and utterly unacceptable. And let's just call it what it is. The real purveyors of cancel culture, the real purveyors of snowflakery, the real purveyors of ruining lives over free speech, it is by far and away way worse on the right than it's ever been on the left. And that's a fact. Hey, y'all, do me a favor and like and subscribe. It helps out big time in the algorithm. Click the bell as well for notifications when videos drop. And watch that video on screen right now. You know you want to.